Hey everyone, my name is Derek Weber, principal here at DG Elementary in Dysart, Iowa. This is a presentation and a video just to explain what our current playground situation is and what we can do to improve it, and kind of our need for a new one. And we'll go over the different reasons why we need one. Starting us off though, I just wanted to say we are looking to raise funds to help purchase a new playground for our school. Our current playground is over 35 years old, and it is recommended that playground equipment is replaced every 25 years. Actually, just a few weeks ago, I found the blueprints and the different renderings for our playground, and it was actually from 1988, so about exactly 35 years old. So what the company that I've been working with, I've actually contacted a few, but the one we've been working primarily with recommends that every 20 years that we start taking a look at our playground equipment and considering replacing it by year 25. So obviously, if we look at 35 years old, that's 10 years over that threshold. So we are definitely in need of something new. We are unable to fix and improve our current structure because the parts are no longer in production. Another concern of ours is the inclusivity of the equipment. We have multiple students in our school who have mobility issues and cannot utilize the playground. We'll get into those specific students here in just a couple of minutes. We would love to build a new structure and surface to make it more accessible to our students. That's kind of we'll hit more on those two different components here throughout the presentation, but the structure is what we want to replace. And then also kind of some of the freestanding ones around it. And then also the surface, all are equally important. This is incredibly important to me because my top priority as principal is my student safety, and our current playground has several safety concerns. More importantly, our students and community deserve a playground that they can enjoy. We have to keep in mind that it's not just our students that are able to utilize this playground. It's also community members that are able to play on it as well. So moving on here, these are the different components of the presentation. The first one, our current playground. We'll talk about the age, the pictures of some of the issues, and our inability to make improvements, our need for an inclusive playground, what a playground could look like and what it could offer our students, and also the fundraising aspect of it. So if you take a look here, this is our current structure. On the picture on the left-hand side is actually the front view of it. And then the picture on the right is just the other side, the back view. It's an okay size structure. We would definitely want something maybe bigger or something with more space where kids could play on it and utilize it more. The maximum capacity is not very high on this one. But if you take a look here, I took a lot of close-up pictures of stuff with some descriptions there. So if you take a look, we're not able to replace parts because of the square posts. They do not make the joints for the square posts anymore. They don't make the square posts themselves anymore. If you look at any new playground equipment or playground structure in the last 20 years, you're looking at circular posts. We have square posts and square joints. They don't make those anymore. So the thing about structures is if a slide or a ladder or a climbing wall, if something like that is something that needs replaced, you can replace it. You can use those joints to attach new pieces. We can't even do that. We can't replace a slide. We can't replace a fireman's pole. We can't replace a ladder or monkey bars or anything like that because we have these square posts. They don't make the attachments for those anymore. So keeping the structure and replacing parts here and there, that's not really an option for us. We'd have to replace the whole structure. Taking a look here, this is a couple pictures of our drawbridge going across here. The big issue, besides the fact that it doesn't look pretty, is that the fact that there's chains. Okay, the chains are not safe. If you look at any new structure, they have steel posts or poles there that are stationary that won't move. They're safer. When you take a look at these chains here on that middle picture, you can see that I spread the chains apart. If you spread both chains out, you have about 18 to 24 inches in between those gaps, and kids can, if they trip on that bridge, they fall just right. They're going to fall down and through those chains. We've actually had a kid in the past that got his leg caught in the chain and he was hanging upside down, and we had to have someone come out and help him. So the chains, not safe for, holding people up on the bridge. Also, you talk about pinched fingers, hair, clothing getting caught in these chains, that becomes a safety issue as well. If you look on the right there, that's actually some chains where kids are supposed to be able to climb up on there. Again, not safe. it's a major issue for getting, your foot caught, again, hair, clothing, things caught in there as well. And it doesn't look very nice either, obviously. Another climbing apparatus here with the chains. If you look closely on that picture on the right, you can see that there's a seal. They're like a plastic seal. That's all cracking. You can kind of see the rusted chains below that. If you take a look at these bolts here, if you take a look at, say, this bolt that I'm right there, or that one down there, there's actually a makeshift one there that's actually too long. It's about 1.5 inches, and there's actually excess bolts sticking out the other side. You just can't see it. Again, that's a safety issue. So we're kind of having to come up with these kind of makeshift ways to fix the equipment that we have, because it's so old. And obviously some of the fixes have safety concerns, within the fix. Our swings, if you take a look here on the left-hand side, that little gap right there, that's where the metal has just been wearing down over the years. And that metal originally was that thickness right there, but it's just worn down. It's about half of that, if not maybe a little bit less. So that gets too thin, creates a hazard. A kid swinging, all of a sudden that metal snaps or breaks, the kid's flying off the swings. So again, major safety issue. Now, just the color of these swings alone tells you that these swings have been there for a long time. I'm assuming that they're the original swings, and we actually have to be mindful. We can't just order swings from, say, Amazon, because those are usually residential swings and they don't really meet the requirements, for weights or the thickness of the chains. So we can't just order some from Amazon. We have to order specialty ones, and those ones get expensive, when it would just make more sense to, say, order a whole new frame for the swings. And we wouldn't want to just purchase, just run-of-the-mill swings. We'll get into that a little bit more as we look at some of the different renderings, but we wouldn't want to just stick with traditional swings. There's different kinds of swings now that allow for students with different physical disabilities to be able to swing as well. So we'll get into that more as we go. Taking a look here, at this actually at the top of our structure, of our tallest slide there, the one that twirls around there, there should be 3 railings, like on the left-hand side here. Obviously, we're missing one right there. This is one of the joints on the under end of the structure. There's a big crack in it right there. If you look at some of the different metal and steel finishes, we have some bolts here that are rusting. We have some different metal parts here that connect, say, the tube to the actual structure. Those are rusting as well. We have a lot of finishes missing. This is just a few of them. If you look here, there's actually a cap on the end of this railing here. That's being missed right here. We have these different open circles here. They should be covered up like these ones are, but they're open. So we're missing a lot of the finishes on our playground. And then, not that this is the most important thing, but it's also not colorful or appealing to the eye. I'm not sure who picked brown and tan as the color for our structure, but there's just so many different colorful options that you can go with. I just imagine, community members that go past our park, or kids that go there. What park would you want to go to? Our city park that has all these different colors, or a brown and tan park that is old and, has paint chipped and all that paint's just wearing down. As you can see on the steps there, all that brown paint is just wearing down. You can just see the gray, the actual metal. Another part of we talked about, that was a picture of the larger structure, but these are some more of the smaller freestanding structures that we'd want to replace as well. If you take a look at the left here, is just a different climbing apparatus here, while the paint's chipping off of it. You got these different kind of gymnastics bars. We actually have quite a few kids that like to play on those ones. But again, the paint has been chipping off of them, starting to rust too. And then all our swings here on the right. I showed you some close-up pictures of those. I would like to do something a little bit differently. Like I mentioned, get some different swings on there, and different types of swings. There's some cool 2-person swings too that I would like to look at. So I would look to replace all these things with some more inclusive pieces, and we'll get into what inclusive means later here in the presentation. Taking a look here also is the same kind of area. These are on the left-hand side here. These are kind of like a zip line deal where the kids grab onto that black handle there. They push off the wooden piece here and they slide across. The problem I've seen is we have a lot of the grades that utilize our playground are kindergarten, first, second, and third. The kindergarten and first graders aren't even tall enough to first off get up there. So if they let go of this apparatus, they fall, and then that handle's in the middle and they can't reach it to even slide it back to where they can get back up on it. So kids aren't able to utilize that. But if you look, the picture in the middle here is the same piece. It's a little taller over by the 4th and 5th grade playground area. But with that post, that wooden piece there actually broke off right here. It's a big gap here, as you can see. And these other pieces, if you look on the way right, these are close-ups of it. They have cracks in them. These other pieces aren't going to last forever. We're going to have the same issue. They're going to break. So we would need to replace these pieces as well. So we talked a little bit about the large structure. We talked about some of those smaller freestanding structures. The third part that we really need to hit on is our surfacing. That is one of our biggest issues as well, is we definitely need something different. So if you've played at the DG playground, you know it's pea gravel. Pea gravel is, I think moms across, the town can agree that pea gravel is awful. It's dirty. When it rains, it gets muddy. Kids' clothes and shoes get ruined from it. As you can see, your pea gravel gets kicked up onto the asphalt, creating tripping hazards and falling hazards, because kids will run across this and they'll slide on that pea gravel across that asphalt. And we've seen a lot of scraped knees from that too. And obviously, as you can see, the pea gravel here has really thinned out. You should have, at least 4 or 5 inches there at least of pea gravel, and it's not flush with the asphalt or the sidewalk here. So we're losing a lot of pea gravel just over the course of the years, and we're not replacing it. Honestly, this is my first year. I'm not sure when the last time we replaced our pea gravel was. We should be getting like a load of, say, wood mulch, say, every year. If you had wood mulch, you would want to replace it or at least, supplement it with a load every year to even that out as it gets compacted down. I don't think that's been done with this pea gravel. My guess is in years. This is just kind of another view of it. Here's a close-up of actually this area right here. As you can see, the pea gravel is so thin. Like I said, we should have at least 4 or 5 inches. They recommend probably 6 or 7. Sorry. But that's really thin. And it creates a hazard. When we talk about fall heights, what a fall height means is swings have like an 8-foot fall height. So if you fall off your swings, you're supposed to have something that can cushion an 8-foot fall. Pea gravel, especially this thin, does not do that. So we are not in compliance in that sense at all. As you can see, it's really thin here, pretty much from the sidewalk all the way down to some of these different freestanding pieces. And it's thicker as you get around to the larger structure, but still not even as thick there. And we'll talk about the pea gravel here and the issues with students with mobility issues. They aren't able to utilize the playground because of the pea gravel and the inability to go through it. So kind of that's a good segue into our next part here, our need for an inclusive playground. We have multiple students with physical disabilities who aren't able to use the playground. Here at DG, we have multiple students with physical limitations due to disabilities and mobility issues. With our current playground equipment and surface, they aren't able to participate as well as they could or at all. So when we think about that word inclusive, that means like including everyone in every aspect of our playground. So we have one student with muscular dystrophy. We have one student with spina bifida. We have one student with partial paralysis of their right side. We have one student with a long history of medically intractable epilepsy, which affects their mobility. So we have 4 students with pretty significant mobility issues. So when you think about our structure, or we think about our surfacing, are those students actually able to utilize those different parts of our playground? And right now, the answer is no, they are not. So what is an inclusive playground? Here's actually from inclusiveplaygrounds.net. This is their definition: a universally designed, sensory-rich environment that enables all children to develop physically, socially, and emotionally. It's an engaging place that provides the just right level of challenge and offers opportunities to succeed. A well-designed place that addresses all levels of ability. A place that goes beyond minimum accessibility to create play experiences that meet a variety of needs and interests. At an inclusive playground, children of all abilities can interact with each other and do what all kids want to do, play. So that's kind of what an inclusive playground is, and that's what we want to shoot for. And currently, our playground is not inclusive. So you may be asking, well, how can we do that? Well, here's what we can do. So here are different pieces of equipment that we could do. So these are more of those freestanding structures. the smaller structures. So if you take a look here to the left, there's a student in a wheelchair. They can wheel right up besides other kids and play on this structure right here. If you take a look at the surfacing to wood chips, that'll be addressed in our next slide as well. But students with wheelchairs can get through wood chips because they get compacted throughout the course of the year. A kid in a wheelchair would not be able to get through the pea gravel that we have right now. This student right here is playing on some different musical instruments. Looks like the drums. Down here, another student's playing here in what it looks like dirt. I don't know if we would go with this particular piece because whether it's sand or dirt, it's a little bit of a mess. I'm not sure if we do that necessarily. And off to the right here is actually kind of a merry-go-round of sorts where a student that's in a wheelchair can actually get wheeled right up onto it and spin around. And it's not just students in wheelchairs that utilize these. Every kid can utilize these. That's what inclusivity means. It's not inclusive doesn't mean just students with physical disabilities can use it. It's everyone. Okay. So these would be pieces everyone can utilize. So how can we be inclusive? Another big part of that is the surfacing. Here's 4 different options. So the one on the way to the left here is what they call engineered wood fiber, EWF. This is the cheapest option. This is actually what LaPorte City Elementary has. They get a load of it every year to supplement and replace as that stuff gets compacted. You just need to get a load of it. It's about $10,000 every year. If you take a look here up at the top middle, that's turf. That is a great option for inclusivity because when you run across wood chips or mulch or pea gravel, you really sink in and it's hard to get from point A to point B. I shouldn't say really hard, but it's more difficult. Turf it's a lot easier for kids to maneuver around. The problem with turf is it's a really expensive, and also it takes a lot to maintain that from year to year. Just maybe think going back to the engineered wood fiber over here. That's our least expensive option, but it's not like the mulch you get from, say, Menards when you put it around your trees. It doesn't splinter like that. Now, if you've worked with mulch, you probably have gotten splinters in your hand. This does not splinter. It's pretty smooth chips. Like if you pick up a chip, it's pretty smooth and it's pretty hard to get a sliver from it. You have to really be trying to do it. So that's helpful. Moving off to the right here, that's rubber mulch. It's just rubber that's chopped up. It's similar to what we have at the Dysart Park in our town. They have chopped up tires. This isn't quite the exact same. It's a little more fine than that, but it's similar in a sense. Kind of hard. It's similar to the wood mulch when it comes to trying to navigate through. When you think about a wheelchair going through there, but it's better than what we would have pea gravel. And then down here in the bottom middle, that would be the best option. That's called poured in place surfacing. What they do is, you dig out the area that you want to put that in. They pour it in, and it solidifies and hardens up a little bit. But if you look, it's basically that rubber mulch, but it's melded together. It's melted together where it's squishy. So if you've ever walked on this stuff, it gives a little bit. It's firm enough where you can walk around on it. It's not like super squishy, but if you fell or something, it'd have a little bit of give to it where it's a little more safe. That's the most expensive version. Now, the cool thing is you can actually kind of do a combination with. You don't just have to do all the poured in place surface. You don't have to do all wood mulch or a rubber mulch. What some schools and parks will do is they'll put in this poured in place surfacing underneath, like say the large structure, and then they'll put the wood chips around everything else or the rubber mulch around everything else. So you're not just locked into, you can customize it to fit your needs. My initial thought would be to, maybe do poured in place surface under our large structure and then making a poured in place path through the other parts of our playground that go along some of those more inclusive pieces. So that way someone if they were in a wheelchair, they could actually get around to those different pieces fairly easy. They wouldn't have to worry about going through a bunch of wood chips or rubber mulch. But we can kind of pick and choose what we do with our surface. But the wood chips are the most affordable option. And the thing about it too is if we can't get the poured in place surface right away, we could always do that down the road. So doing just the surf, I did have someone come up with the idea of doing the surfacing first and putting that around our current structure. That really wouldn't be an option to me because I want to replace the large structure. And if we put that poured in place surface around the structure we have out there now, we would have to tear that surface out, when we put in a large structure. So we want to get the larger structure in first, then maybe do a cheaper option if we can't afford it right away. Maybe we do these wood chips around it first, and then down the road as we raise more money, then we could do that pour and play surface right underneath of the structure and go from there. So these are some, we're going to go on to what some different renderings of what our playground could look like. I contacted 3 different companies months ago. They gave me some renderings. I met with my playground team. Our playground team consists of a few different teachers, a few different community members, and parents of students here at DG. And we decided to go with this one company, Boland. They're actually out of Marshalltown. So Boland Recreation, and they gave us these renderings. And these are just ideas. This isn't what we've decided on. We're not 100% going with these different drawings or one of these 2 options. This is just what it could look like. So if you look here, these are all the same layouts, just different angles of them. So if you look here, we have our main structure, we have new swings, and we have some different freestanding structures. Now, if you look, we talked about being inclusive. The structure itself meets ADA requirements. So what that means is, to meet ADA requirements, essentially you have to have some kind of a landing pad where a kid in a wheelchair could get up on there if they needed to, or students with mobility could get up there. If you look here on the picture to the right-hand corner, that little landing there is what helps it meet ADA requirements. So they can get up, they would have to be able to get these a few steps, and then they would be able to access the rest of the structure itself. Also, this little piece right here is a merry-go-round of sorts. That's an inclusive piece. This part right here, that's got different games on it. That would be inclusive. This climbing apparatus wouldn't necessarily be inclusive. It's just an option. This would be inclusive because students in wheelchairs and other mobility issues can get into it. This piece here, as well as this piece here. So basically, if it's at ground level, it's considered inclusive because students with mobility issues can access those pieces. Another inclusive piece, if you look here, it's kind of small, but that swing right there. I don't know if you've ever seen those swings before. They're really neat though. It's almost, I compare it to like getting in a roller coaster. You got the thing that, the part that comes down and straps you in. It's got that component to it. So if we had a kid in a wheelchair, if someone was able to lift him up into that swing, we'd have that part come down and they could swing in that. Obviously, they can't swing on a normal swing. That would be dangerous. And there are also different versions of swings. So there's 2-person swings. I kind of mentioned that earlier as well. There's a lot of different swings we can do. So we could do some, maybe 2 traditional swings, a couple of double swings, and then maybe a swing or 2 that are more inclusive for everyone. So that's option 1. We break down the pricing here a little bit on the next slide, but if we have to do stuff in phases where maybe we just get the large structure first, then we wait on these other smaller pieces as we can afford them, that might be an option too. So doing things in phases is for sure on the docket. So taking a look here, this is all the pricing of all these pictures here. So if you look at all the playground equipment, we're looking about $78,000 for this particular rendering. Now prices are subject to change. This was about 6 months ago, so prices probably gone up just a little bit, but that would be the large structure with all of these pieces around it. You're looking at about $78,000 with it being delivered. Now, installation, the rule of thumb that most of these companies use is about 1/3 of the price. Okay, so about 1/3 of $78,000 is about 32. It's a little over 1/3. Like I said, that's just kind of a rule of thumb. So we would want to pay for someone. I had someone ask, if we got enough community members, could they help install it? It's a pretty big undertaking. It's one thing to install something smaller like these smaller pieces around here. But to install anything on this big of a scale, we would have to hire it out to be done. I want to make sure it's done right. So the installation is about 1/3 of the cost of the equipment. And then they quoted us here with the engineered wood fiber because it's the cheapest version right now. So if you take a look here, it's about $10,000 for a load. That would get us through a year. We'd probably need to get another $10,000 each year or every other year to replace the wood chips that we lose throughout the year, and the fact that it's going to get compacted. When I showed you that picture of the asphalt and sidewalk, those wood chips are going to sink over time. So we would need more wood chips every year to make sure it was flush with that asphalt and with that sidewalk. So that would be the cost for the equipment, the installation, and the engineered wood fiber. Now you might be asking, well, what about these different surfaces? The rubber mulch is a little bit more expensive than the wood chips. And then the poured in place surface is a lot more expensive. So the number I got quoted from a couple different places was $80,000 for that poured in place surface. If we want to do that whole playground area, you're looking at, 80,000 on the low end and 130,000 on the expensive end. That's a lot. So I think that's kind of out of the question for us to do the whole area, that poured in place surfacing, but it would be more in our price range to do the poured in place surface underneath the large structure, and then maybe making a pathway to those other freestanding pieces. That would be a little cheaper. And then you can do the wood fiber, the wood chips or the rubber mulch. You could do that in the other places. That would save us some cost for sure. If you take a look at option 2 here, this structure is quite a bit bigger. It takes up about the same space on the ground level, but it's 2 stories. So it's not quite as inclusive as that last piece is. It still does meet ADA requirements because, again, you have that landing there where people with mobility issues can access it without having to climb up it. But it's not quite as inclusive. We did put stars around this option. This was kind of the option as a team we decided to set as our goal. We set a goal of raising $200,000 to purchase this. But it's got this big apparatus, this big structure here, several different freestanding pieces around it, new swings. And you can, in the thing with these different renderings is you can pick and choose everything. These are just a few of the inclusive pieces. The company that we looked at through Bolin is Miracle. They installed our last structure, 35 years ago. They're still around. They have a whole catalog of inclusive pieces here. They also have a whole catalog of different structures. And you can say we don't want this slide here. You can take that slide off and put a climbing wall, or you can put something that goes to the ground level that's more inclusive. So we can make this structure here more inclusive as well by having things that are on the ground level that students are able to get to more easily. So taking a look at this option, this is the one we kind of said as a team that we would like to shoot for. The equipment delivered is $117,000. The installation, $48,000. And then the engineered wood fiber again is $10,000. So the surfacing stays about the same no matter what, but as we get a bigger structure, a nicer structure in more pieces, obviously that price goes up. So we're not locked into these prices. Obviously we can pick and choose more things, but that's about $175,000. So we talk about, paying for it. We want to shoot for $200,000 because obviously we're going to have to pay taxes. And there might be other things that come up, like we might need to pay someone to take away our old equipment, or I might need to have someone come in and dig up the playground area to put down different surface, and to take away the pea gravel. So there's other costs that are going to be associated that maybe we aren't discussing explicitly in this presentation, but $200,000 seems to be a price that if we got everything, so if we got, the structure, we got the freestanding pieces, we got the installation, we got a new surface, we're looking probably at about $200,000. So that's kind of our goal. We're kind of shooting for the stars here. Let's shoot big, try to raise as much money as we can. And that's kind of be what our next part here is of our presentation. A good segue is going to be the fundraising. So our plan with the fundraising is that you can imagine our biggest obstacle will be raising the funds to make our playground a reality. It's the easy part's, going out and talking to these companies and them giving us pictures and identifying the different problems of our playground. That's the easy part. The hard part is the fundraising. So here's the different ways we plan to go about it. So the district will be providing some funding. The amount is yet to be determined based on the other needs of the buildings. So we have 4 buildings here in Union. We have 2 elementaries. We have a middle school and a high school. School financing is tricky because only certain funds, certain accounts can pay for certain things. So with our playground, you're looking at our PEPL and SAVE money as our primary way of making improvements to our buildings and to our grounds. The problem is obviously we can't use all of that money just for DG or for our playground. We have to consider the different needs of the buildings to make sure that they're functional. If we need a new heating and cooling system or unit, that comes out of that fund. If we want to, put asphalt in a parking lot or to make repairs to a parking lot, that comes out of our PEPL and SAVE money. So playgrounds fall into that category. So the amount is yet to be determined because we don't know what the other needs of our buildings are at all times. So the district will be putting some funding forward. It's just the amount is yet to be determined. We also are going to be relying on donations and donors. So if you are willing to donate, money can be dropped off at the DG office. So we just come into the elementary building here at 411 Lincoln Street in Dysart. If you're willing to donate, whether it's making it, writing a check or dropping off cash, you can do it that way. You can also donate through the JMC app. We're still trying to work on that. It's a little more complicated than just stopping in. If you want more information on that, you can contact me, or just going through our local bank, Northeast Security Bank here in Dysart. You could write a check out to Union Community School Districts or to DG Elementary. You would just need to make sure you specify that it's a donation for our playground. And the bank will be able to put that in a certain account for us, so that way we can utilize the money for that purpose specifically. We plan on hosting different events throughout the course of next year. We will also be partnering with our parent-teacher organization, our PTO. They've always been super helpful and supportive of us and our different initiatives, and our student council to hold different events throughout the year, with some of the proceeds going towards our playground. Donations have been our primary way of raising funds so far. So we haven't really even kicked off any events yet, but we have received a few donations. So the first donation was a private donor. We also received a donation from our PTO and from our student council. So we've actually raised about $4,500 thus far, without hitting the ground really hard on fundraising and donations yet. But yeah, so another way that we plan on doing that is writing grants. Is going to be a big way that we plan on. The tough part of writing grants is you have to write them during certain parts of the year. So some grants might only be open for a couple months. Some grants, they want you to match. They want to match funds, so they say, well, we'll match funds. So if you raise $50,000, we'll match that. We'll put $50,000 towards it. So when we think about right now, we have $4,500 to put towards our playground. You can write a grant for that, for $4,500, but we obviously want to be able to say we've raised more, so that way we can get grants to match a higher amount. So writing those grants is the kind of the fourth way that we plan on it. So if you ever have any questions about anything, my information, you can contact me here at DG Elementary. Our phone number is 319-476-7110. Also, you can look up my email address. It's on the Union School District website. You can contact me through that. If you ever want to stop into the elementary here and ask me questions that way, I'm more than willing to answer questions. So, and this will also be posted on YouTube and Facebook. So if you ever want to ask questions on even the Facebook post, I'll be checking the Facebook post and answering questions that way as well. So feel free to ask questions any way you can get a hold of me. I do want to thank you for watching our video and taking the time to consider whether it's donating or just learning more about our playground and our need for new ones. So thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video, and we look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you. Take care.